The bill was $4,800 for a dinner that was never finished. For billionaire Oliver Knight, it was pocket change. For Mia, the waitress, it was 4 months' rent. But on this night, the price wasn't on the menu. The real cost was $100 million, payable in a single sentence. In a restaurant built on secrets, Mia was the only one who saw the trap hidden behind the vintage wine and fawning smiles. She had only seconds to act, knowing that one spilled glass of water could either save a man's empire or cost her everything she had. She took a deep breath, looked at the most powerful man in the room, and said the 5 words that would change their lives forever. The Gilded Ledge wasn't just a restaurant. It was a fortress of quiet power, perched 48 floors above the city. The carpets were so thick they absorbed sound, secrets, and the footsteps of servers like Mia, who moved through the gilded, low-lit space like ghosts in polyester. Mia was not a ghost. She was a student, $70,000 in debt, with a midterm on forensic psychology in 36 hours and a rent check due in 3 days. The Gilded Ledge was her lifeline, a place she both despised and depended on. She hated the entitled, dismissive patrons, but she was fascinated by them. Her textbook, The Profile of Deceit, was hidden in her locker, its pages on duping delight and micro-expressions, feeling far more relevant here than in any lecture hall. Tonight, the air was different. Jeffrey, the floor manager, a man whose posture was a permanent, terrified bow, was vibrating with anxiety. "Knight is on his way. Table 12, he hissed to the staff, straightening a tie that was already perfect. "I want perfection. I need perfection. His check pays all our salaries. Mia, you're on point. You're quiet. You're quick. Don't be weird." Weird, in Jeffrey's language, meant human. Mia nodded, her face a mask of professional neutrality. "Yes, Mr. Hamlin." Oliver Knight. Even Mia knew the name. Knight Industries, the man who was building the digital architecture of the future. He arrived not with a bang, but with a vacuum. The ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to drop by 10 decibels. He was younger than Mia expected, perhaps 40, with a face that looked carved from granite, and tired eyes that scanned nothing and everything. He was flanked by 2 men, Frank and Ben, who didn't look like guests. They looked like movable, well-dressed obstacles. They took the table behind Knight. With him was a woman, Brenda Lawson. Mia knew her too from the fawning business articles. Knight's CFO, his right hand, his iron shield, as one magazine had dubbed her. She was all sharp angles and expensive perfume, her smile a bright, tight slash of red. "Oliver, you look tired," Brenda said, her voice a purr as she slid into the booth. "You should have taken the weekend in Aspen." "The Hong Kong market is jittery," Oliver murmured, barely looking at the menu Mia presented. "What's this urgent fire you had to put out, Brenda? My team was blindsided." "A solution, Oliver, not a fire," Brenda said, placing her hand over his. "A big one. Let's order. I'm starving." Mia took their order. A 900 bottle of Pinot Noir, 2 $300 dry-aged steaks. Oliver Knight didn't even look at her. He just pointed at the menu item. Brenda, however, gave her a brilliant 1,000-watt smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was the first red flag. It was the smile of a predator, not a colleague. Mia retreated to the service station, her eyes scanning the room. Frank and Ben, the bodyguards, were sipping water, their gaze methodically sweeping the other diners. And then Mia saw him. At the far end of the bar, away from the chatter, sat a man in a simple grey suit. He wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. He was just nursing a club soda, his back to the wall. He would have been forgettable, except for 2 things. First, his stillness. It was absolute, the kind Mia had read about in her profiling textbook, the practiced, patient stillness of a hunter. Second, his eyes. They were fixed, unblinking, on table 12. He wasn't watching Oliver Knight. He was watching Brenda Lawson. The first hour of the dinner was a performance of corporate camaraderie. Brenda was brilliant. She laughed. She reminisced. She reframed Oliver's stress as shared victories. Remember the 18 acquisition? When everyone said we were insane to buy out that lab? She said, raising her glass. And now it's our entire AI division. That was you, Oliver. Your gut. I just run the numbers. Oliver visibly relaxed. He leaned back, even managing a small, genuine smile. We did good, Bren. We always do. Mia moved in and out, a shadow filling water glasses, clearing plates. She was invisible, which made her the most dangerous person in the room. She could hear everything. Which brings me to the Hong Kong problem, Brenda said, her tone shifting from nostalgic to urgent. Victor Holloway is making a play, a big one. The name hit the table like a lead weight. Oliver Knight's smile vanished. Victor Holloway was his nemesis, a rival billionaire who played dirty and celebrated his wins with scorched earth. What play? Oliver's voice was low, cold. He's trying to poach the entire Hong Kong R&D team, and he's trying to file an injunction against our new patent, the Omega patent. He claims we stole the source code. He's lying. Of course he is, Brenda said smoothly. But he's loud. If he files that injunction tomorrow before the market opens in Asia, our stock will plummet. He'll trigger a panic sell. We'll lose, conservatively, $100 million. Maybe more. He'll call in our debt. It could be a catastrophe. Oliver ran a hand over his face. So what's the solution? Legal is already fighting him on 3 other fronts. That's the beauty, Brenda said. She reached down to her briefcase and pulled out a sleek, leather-bound portfolio. I found a way around him, a legal fail-safe, a protocol override we embedded in the subsidiary's charter 2 years ago. We can move the entire patent portfolio into a new, secure shell corp, effective immediately. He can file all the injunctions he wants. There will be nothing to file against. She opened the portfolio. Inside was a single, densely printed document. It just needs your signature. And because it's a state of emergency clause, it needs your verbal authorization. Just a formality. Oliver picked up the document. His eyes glazed over as he scanned the dense legalese. This is complex, Brenda. I need Peterson and the legal team to review this. We don't have time, Brenda insisted. Her voice was just a little too sharp. Peterson is in meetings until Friday. By then, Holloway will have burned us to the ground. Oliver, this is the legal team. I ran this past our best counsel. It's solid. It's the only way. Trust me. Mia, refilling their water, watched the exchange. Brenda's hand, the one not holding the portfolio, was clenching and unclenching in her lap. Her foot was tapping a frantic rhythm against the floor. She was terrified. Or was she excited? And across the room, the man in the grey suit, Mr. Graves, subtly shifted. He pulled his phone from his pocket, typed a quick message, and placed it face down on the bar. Oliver sighed, the weight of his empire pressing down on him. 100 million. Just like that. He's a snake, Oliver. It's time to cut off his head, Brenda said, pushing the portfolio and a heavy, expensive pen toward him. It's just a signature. Then we can finish this amazing steak. Oliver picked up the pen. Mia's pulse was hammering. Something was wrong. Her brain was screaming it. The Profile of Deceit. Chapter 4. Deception in high-stakes negotiations. Brenda was showing all the signs, the compressed lips, the high-pitched vocal tone, the overemphasis on "trust me." It was classic manipulative behavior. But why? To save the company? Or for something else? "Excuse me," Mia murmured, backing away from the table. She needed a moment. She needed a new angle. She walked toward the bar, her stated mission to fetch a fresh bottle of sparkling water. Her real mission was a walk-by of the man in the grey suit. "Mr. Graves." She passed behind him. His phone was still on the bar, face down. Useless. Jeffrey, the manager, intercepted her. "Is table 12 fine? Are they happy? Does Mr. Knight need anything?" "They're fine, Mr. Hamlin," Mia said, trying to get past him. "Just deep in conversation. Good, good. Don't interrupt them, but also don't not interrupt them. Keep their glasses full. Be a presence, but an invisible one." "Yes, Mr. Hamlin." This was her chance. The brief conversation had given her a reason to linger near the bar. She turned back and, in a moment of pure, desperate inspiration, she did the one thing she'd been trained never to do. She tripped. She stumbled hard into a bar stool next to Mr. Graves, her hip connecting with a loud thwack. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry," she gasped, grabbing the bar for support. Mr. Graves didn't flinch. He didn't even turn his head. He just slowly put his hand on his phone, as if to shield it. But he wasn't fast enough. In the second she stumbled, she'd knocked a stray cocktail stirrer, which had, in turn, nudged his phone. The phone, which was apparently set to a high-sensitivity wake-on-raise feature, lit up. The screen was open to a text conversation. Mia, still apologizing profusely, "I'm so clumsy, I'm so sorry, sir," had a perfect 1-second view of the screen. It was all she needed. "Holloway. Is he ready?" "Graves. Lawson has him. He's reading the doc." "Holloway. Is the audio clear? The recorder must be active." "Graves. Confirmed. Lawson has the pen mic." "Holloway. Good. The second he says, 'I approve the Omega Protocol override,' the wire transfer is authorized. My bank's AI is listening for that specific phrase. The 100 mehels goes to us, not from us." "Graves. And the signature?" "Holloway. The signature is the icing. The POA clause in Appendix B gives her control for 72 hours. By the time he realizes the 100 metals is gone, she'll have already sold me the rest of the company." Mia's blood turned to ice. She backed away, bowing and apologizing, her mind a screaming siren. It wasn't a rescue, it was a heist. Brenda wasn't saving Oliver from Holloway, she was serving him to Holloway. The $100 million story was a lie. It wasn't about saving 100 meters, it was about stealing 100 meters. The verbal authorization was a voice-activated trigger for a wire transfer out of Knight Industries. And the signature? POA clause in Appendix B, power of attorney. Brenda would have control of everything. This wasn't a $100 million trap. That was just the bait. This was a multi-billion-dollar trap. She looked over at table 12. Oliver Knight, one of the smartest men in the world, was completely blind. He was nodding, his face grim with resolve. He was picking up the pen. Brenda was smiling, that cold, bright, terrifying smile. Mia had to do something. But what? She couldn't yell. She couldn't run to the bodyguards. They were loyal to Knight, who was loyal to Brenda. She had no proof, just a text message she wasn't supposed to see. She had seconds. She looked at her hand. It was holding a tray with a crystal-cut glass of sparkling water and a silver bucket of ice. It was her only weapon. Mia's feet moved before her brain had fully processed the plan. She walked toward table 12, her heart a drum against her ribs. Every step was an eternity. She saw the gleam of the pen in Oliver's hand. She saw the predatory focus in Brenda's eyes. She saw Mr. Graves at the bar, watching, his hand in his pocket. Brenda was guiding Oliver, her finger pointing to the signature line. Right here, Oliver, and just say the words for the record. I approve the Omega Protocol override. Oliver took a breath. He opened his mouth. I approve. No! Mia didn't scream it, but she projected it, a short, sharp burst of sound as she tripped on the leg of her own clearing stand. It was a beautiful, catastrophic, and utterly deliberate stumble. She didn't just spill the water. She launched the entire tray. Time slowed down. The silver ice bucket flew in a graceful arc, spraying ice chips like diamonds across the table. The crystal glass of sparkling water hit the leather portfolio dead center, exploding in a wave of cold, clear liquid. Brenda Lawson shrieked, a raw, ugly sound that didn't match her polished exterior. She leaped back as ice water and glass fragments sprayed her $5,000 suit. The document, the multi-billion-dollar trap, was instantly saturated. The ink on the expensive, creamy paper began to bleed and run, turning the dense legalese into a blurred, blue-black mess. Oliver Knight sat frozen, a drop of water on his nose, the pen still held mid-air. "Oh my God," Mia cried, channeling every ounce of panic she could muster. "Oh my God, Mrs. Lawson. Mr. Knight, I am so sorry. I think I caught my heel." Jeffrey, the manager, was already sprinting over, his face a mask of purple-white horror. "Mia, what have you done? You're fired! You are fired!" Brenda was on her feet, her face a contortion of pure, unfiltered rage. She wasn't just angry, she was furious in a way that was completely out of proportion to a spilled drink. She grabbed a napkin and frantically dabbed at the ruined document. "You clumsy, stupid little girl," she hissed, her voice shaking. "Look at this. You've ruined it. Do you know what you've done?" I'm so sorry, Mom. Let me help you," Mia said, her voice trembling. She grabbed a cloth napkin and leaned in, seemingly to help clean the mess. She was now inches from Oliver Knight's ear. Jeffrey was screaming for security. Brenda was staring at the soggy document as if it were a dying relative. This was her moment. Mia didn't look at Oliver. She kept her eyes on the mess, her hands cleaning, with frantic, useless pats. She pitched her voice low, just for him, a desperate, urgent whisper beneath the chaos. "Sir, you have to leave now." Oliver, still stunned, turned his head. "What?" "Don't say the words. Don't say anything," Mia whispered, her voice fast and shaking. "They are recording you. The pen is a microphone. The man at the bar, in the grey suit, he's with them. It's a trap. The document isn't what she says it is. Please, just leave." Jeffrey grabbed Mia's arm, yanking her back. "Out! Get out! Security! Remove her!" But Mia had done her part. She looked at Oliver Knight. Their eyes met for a single, desperate second. Oliver Knight hadn't built an empire by being stupid. He was a man who processed data at lightning speed. And the data was this. 1. Brenda, his iron shield, was reacting to a ruined document, not with annoyance, but with the panic of a failed conspirator. 2. The waitress who had been perfectly professional all night had just sacrificed her job in the most dramatic way possible to tell him he was in danger. 3. His gut, which had been screaming at him all night, was now blaring like a fire alarm. He stood up. The chaos in the restaurant stopped. His movement, so sudden and decisive, silenced everyone. "This meeting is over," Oliver said, his voice quiet but crackling with a cold authority that cut through the room. Brenda's head snapped up. Her face was white. "Oliver, no! We have to fix this. I can get another copy." "No," he said. He looked at the man at the bar, Mr. Graves, who was now standing, his hand inside his jacket. Oliver locked eyes with his bodyguard, Frank. "We're leaving." "Oliver, you can't!" Brenda cried, grabbing his arm. "We have to sign this. Holloway will—" Oliver pulled his arm away from her, his gaze lethal. "Don't touch me." He turned, walked past the screaming Jeffrey, past the ruined table, and headed for the door. "Frank, Ben, with me," he commanded. Then he paused and looked back at Mia, who was standing there, shaking, surrounded by restaurant security. "And bring her." Frank and Ben were professionals. They didn't ask questions. They moved. Ben, the larger of the two, simply placed himself between Oliver and the rest of the room. Frank walked straight to Mia, who was being held by the arm by a stunned Jeffrey. "Let her go," Frank said. "She's fired. She's cost us." Frank didn't argue. He simply applied gentle, undeniable pressure to Jeffrey's shoulder until the manager's hand fell away. "Mr. Knight wants her." Frank grabbed Mia's hand, not gently. "Stay close." They were a 4-person wedge moving toward the exit. "Oliver, wait!" Brenda was running after them, her composure completely gone. "You don't understand. You're making a terrible mistake." At the same time, Mr. Graves was moving to intercept them, heading for the private elevator. "Mr. Knight, stop! Your CFO has an urgent matter." Ben saw him coming. He didn't break stride, but simply shifted his weight, pivoted, and blocked Graves's path with a body check that sent the man in the grey suit staggering back into a large potted plant. It was clean, brutal, and efficient. "Elevator now," Oliver commanded. They piled into the private elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing off Brenda's frantic, screaming face. The silence in the small, wood-panelled box was absolute, broken only by Mia's ragged, terrified breathing. She was shaking from head to toe, adrenaline dumping into her system like a tidal wave. She had just assaulted a billionaire's dinner, lost her job, and been manhandled by security, all in the span of 90 seconds. Oliver Knight stood in the corner, not looking at her. He was staring at the floor numbers as they descended. He was perfectly, terrifyingly calm. The doors opened into a private underground garage. A black, armored sedan was waiting, its engine already purring. "In," Oliver said. Frank opened the back door for Oliver and Mia. Ben took the front passenger seat. The car pulled out into the night, the tires screeching faintly. They drove for several blocks in total silence. Mia was pressed against the door, her waitress uniform smelling faintly of spilled wine and fear. She stared at the man beside her. Finally, Oliver Knight turned his head. He didn't look angry. He looked calculating. "Tell me," he said. Mia took a shaky breath. I lost my job." "You did," he agreed, his voice flat. "But I don't think you did it for fun. So, tell me, why did I just flee my own dinner?" Mia's words came out in a rush. She told him everything. Her suspicions, her forensic psychology class, the duping delight in Brenda's smile, the man at the bar, the stumble, the text message on the phone. The audio must be clear. The pen mic. The 100 mets goes to us. The POA clause in Appendix B. She'll have sold me the rest of the company. It was all there. As she spoke, Oliver pulled out his phone. He wasn't texting. He was on a secure app. Lock. Code red. Initiate Omega-7 protocol. All accounts. All. Find Brenda Lawson. Now. Find Victor Holloway. Suspend all transfers from Hong Kong sub. He finished typing and put the phone away. He looked at Mia. The streetlights flashed across his face, revealing the deep lines of stress that were now visible. "The pen," he said, his voice hollow. He reached into his own jacket pocket. "This pen." He'd picked it up off the table. He held it up. It was heavy, black, and elegant. He twisted the cap. A tiny pinprick blue light glowed at the top. A microphone. "My God," he whispered. "She was my friend for 15 years. The car was silent again. What's a POA? Mia asked, her voice small. Oliver's expression darkened. Power of attorney. She wasn't just stealing 100 million, she was stealing the company. The money was just a distraction to cover her tracks, while she used the POA to sell my controlling shares. To Holloway. He looked at Mia, truly looked at her. For the first time. He saw the cheap uniform, the frayed edge of her collar, the terror in her eyes, and the intelligence. You read a text message in a 1-second glance, in the middle of a staged fall, and pieced together a multi-billion-dollar corporate espionage plot. I have a good memory, Mia stammered, and my professor says I'm good at connecting disparate data points. Oliver Knight let out a short, harsh laugh. It was a sound without humor. So is my CFO, or my ex-CFO. He leaned forward and tapped on the partition. Frank, change of plans. We're not going home, we're going to the office, and find this young lady a change of clothes, and a lawyer. She's going to need one. The Knight Industries headquarters was a blade of glass and steel that owned the skyline. At 11 p.m., the boardroom on the 70th floor was lit up like a command center for a war that had, until an hour ago, been entirely secret. The only sound was the quiet, furious tapping of keyboards and the low murmur of voices on secure phone lines. Mia sat in a plush leather chair in the corner, feeling impossibly small. She was still in her waitress uniform, but one of Oliver's team, a severe-looking woman who hadn't said a word, had draped a Knight Industries sweatshirt over her shoulders. It was laughably large, smelling of new cotton, and it was the only thing keeping her from shaking. She was a ghost in a room of killers, lawyers, cybersecurity experts, and corporate strategists, all moving with a terrifying, synchronized purpose. Oliver Knight stood at the head of the massive dark wood table. He wasn't raging. He was preternaturally calm, a state Mia was learning was far more dangerous. His gaze was fixed on the city lights below, a glittering carpet of his own domain, which he had just come within a single signature of losing. It's true. The voice belonged to Riley, the head of cybersecurity. She had bright pink hair, a nose ring, and was typing on 3 different laptops at once. There is a standing order AI trigger at a private bank in Zurich. It's keyed to Mr. Knight's voice, looking for the specific 6-word phrase, I approve the Omega Protocol override. It's not just listening for the words, it's listening for his unique vocal pattern, cadence, and biometric stress indicators. It's terrifyingly high-tech. Where was the money going? Oliver asked, his voice flat, still not turning from the window. A newly formed anonymous shell corporation in Liechtenstein, Riley said, her fingers flying. From there it was set to split and reroute to 12 other accounts across the globe. But the primary account? I managed to crack the registration. One guess. Victor Holloway, Oliver said. It wasn't a question. Bingo, Riley confirmed. The $100 million would have vanished, utterly, irrevocably, untraceably. The money is a distraction, a new voice cut in. It was Peterson, Oliver's personal legal counsel, a man with a grey, lined face who had flown in on a private helicopter minutes after Oliver's Code Red alert. He had a printed copy of the file Brenda had tried to get Oliver to sign, the one Mia had heroically drowned. He projected it onto a massive screen. This, Peterson said, his voice shaking with a kind of awed disgust, is a masterpiece of evil. He scrolled past pages of mundane patent transfer language. It all looks perfectly normal, standard clauses, until you get to Appendix B, Section 4, Subsection A. He zoomed in. The room was silent. Brenda was smart, Peterson said, his tone grim. She knew Oliver would be wary of a full power of attorney, so she didn't write one. She wrote a trigger. The clause states, in the event of executive-level malfeasance or incapacitation that presents an existential threat to shareholder value. She defined malfeasance, Oliver whispered, finally turning from the window. The realization was dawning on his face like a cold dawn. Precisely, Peterson said, jabbing a finger at the screen. She defined malfeasance as any action or failure to act that jeopardizes a primary patent or asset. By telling you Holloway was about to steal the Omega patent, she was convincing you to declare your own malfeasance. She created the crisis, then handed you the solution that was actually the poison. He pointed to the next line. The moment you sign, you're officially declaring the company is under threat, which triggers this clause. Full, temporary, and absolute power of attorney is granted to the Chief Financial Officer for a period of 72 hours to act in all matters financial and operational to secure the company's assets. The air left the room. Mia felt sick. She wouldn't have just had your vote, Peterson said, his voice low. She would have been you for 3 days. 72 hours, Oliver said, the hollow shock in his voice resonating through the room. She wouldn't have needed 72 minutes. She would have sold the entire company to Holloway for $1 just to watch it burn, and been paid tens of billions on the back end. He sank into the chair at the head of the table. 15 years. She was my daughter's godmother. A phone buzzed on the table. A man in a sharp suit who had been monitoring feeds picked it up, listened, and hung up. Sir, he said to Oliver, we have eyes on Brenda Lawson. She's not at home. She's at the Teterboro private airfield. Her jet is fueled, and a flight plan is filed for the Cayman Islands, departure in 30 minutes. And she's not alone. Victor Holloway's Gulfstream is on the tarmac, right next to it. They were going to leave tonight, Riley said, her head snapping up. Together. Another phone buzzed. A different aide. Mr. Graves has been apprehended by building security at the Gilded Ledge. He's not cooperative. He's confirmed former Mossad, specialized in corporate security and extraction. He's requesting a lawyer. The scale of it was suffocating. This wasn't a simple betrayal. It was a meticulously planned international operation run by spies and traitors aimed at the heart of his empire. We have to stop them, Oliver said, standing up, the shock now replaced by a cold, hard focus. Peterson, call the authorities. Get them to that airfield. Arrest them. On what charge? Peterson's question hung in the air, sharp and unwelcome. What? Oliver said. Attempted grand larceny, corporate espionage, fraud. It won't stick, Peterson said, shaking his head. And they know it. Think, Oliver. There's no signed document. There's no recorded wire transfer. All Brenda has to do is say, I was trying to save the company. I brought Oliver a draft. He panicked, and he had me detained. Holloway will say he was just there to discuss a merger. They'll be out on bail in an hour. He looked at Oliver, his eyes full of pity. It's a he said, she said. And in their world, he said needs more proof than she said when $100 billion is on the line. But the text, Oliver said, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He turned to the corner, his gaze landing on Mia for the first time as a person and not just a passenger. She saw the text. She's the proof. All eyes in the boardroom, the lawyers, the strategists, the cyber warriors, swiveled to Mia. She felt herself shrink under the weight of their scrutiny. Peterson's face softened, but his words were brutal. They'll destroy her, Oliver, and they'll enjoy doing it. He walked over to Mia, his voice kind, but his message terrifying. Mia, Here is what will happen. You will give your testimony, and their lawyers, a team of men and women who get paid $2,000 an hour, will take the stand. They will find out about your $70,000 in student debt. They'll call you a gold digger. They'll pull your grades. They'll find that one time you were late on your rent and paint you as a grifter. They will find the boy you dated in high school who says you're dramatic. They will ask you, under oath, if you staged the fall to get a payout from a billionaire. A text message you think you saw in a 1-second glance, on a phone belonging to a man who is a professional, government-trained spy. They will crucify you. By the time they're done, not only will no one believe you, but you might even be facing charges for perjury. Mia's vision tunneled. She could feel the blood draining from her face. He was right. She was a broke waitress. Who would ever believe her? The room was silent. The trap was still active, just in a different way. Brenda and Holloway were going to get on that plane. They were going to escape. They were going to win. Oliver Knight was silent for a long, heavy minute. He stared out the window at the city he owned, at the world that was about to laugh at him for being the fool. Then he turned. The look on his face was gone. The victim was gone. The friend was gone. In his place was the man who had built Knight Industries from nothing. "She's right," he said. Everyone looked at Mia. "What?" she whispered. "No, Riley," Oliver said. "Riley is right. The $100 million does go untraceably. And Peterson's right. We can't beat them in court. Not today." He smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. "So we won't." He turned to his team, his voice crackling with a new, lethal energy. "Riley, I want you to leak the audio from that pen, the entire dinner conversation. I want the world to hear the flattery, the lies, the friendship. Post it on every news outlet, every blog. Anonymous source. Title it The Knight Lawson Tapes." "Sir," Peterson started, "that's questionable." "Then," Oliver continued, ignoring him, "I want you to go to the bank in Zurich. I want you to transfer $100 million or so." "What?" Peterson yelled, looking as if Oliver had just confessed to his own madness, not to Holloway, to a new foundation. "We're going to create it. Tonight. We'll call it the Lawson-Holloway Fund for Corporate Ethics. We are going to publicly fund the research of every single journalist, professor, and independent watchdog group that is trying to expose corporate malfeasance. And their very first grant? A $10 million retainer for a full forensic accounting of every deal Victor Holloway has ever made." A slow, wolfish grin spread across Riley's face. "Oh, that's dirty, boss. That's not a lawsuit, that's a public execution. I love it." "They wanted $100 million trap?" Oliver said. "I'll give it to them. We won't fight them in court. We'll fight them in the press and in the market. We'll bankrupt them with their own scheme." He turned to Peterson. "Get the authorities to that airfield. Detain them. Don't arrest. Delay. A credible but anonymous tip about weapons smuggling. I want them searched. I want their planes audited for airworthiness. I want them sitting on a metal bench, drinking bad coffee and watching the news when this story breaks. Make them sweat." Peterson was already on the phone, a new, sharp light in his eyes. Then Oliver looked at Mia. The boardroom, full of high-powered killers, faded away. It was just the two of them. "But none of this works," Oliver said quietly, without the world knowing why. "They'll call me erratic. They'll say I've lost my mind, that I'm a sore loser. Unless—" Mia understood. Her heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. "Unless they hear from the witness," she said. "They'll destroy you, Mia," Peterson warned again, his hand over the receiver. What I said wasn't a scare tactic. It's the truth." Mia stood up, pulling the massive sweatshirt tighter around her. She was terrified. She was a student. She had a midterm. She was in a room and a world she had no right to be in. But she was also the only person in that room who had seen the truth. "I was a waitress," she said, her voice shaking, but finding its strength. "I served a man who was about to be murdered, professionally. I saw it happen. I did something." She took a deep, shuddering breath and met Oliver's gaze. "What's my word against a billionaire's?" "Nothing." "You're right." She squared her shoulders. "But what about my word with a billionaire?" A real, genuine smile touched Oliver Knight's face. He looked at this young, terrified, and impossibly brave woman. "I think," he said, "it's worth about $100 million, at least." The war was not fought in a courtroom. It was fought on the front page, on 24-hour news tickers, and in the panicked trading pits of the stock exchange. Oliver Knight's counterattack was not a legal brief. It was a public execution. The first salvo was the audio. Riley, his cybersecurity chief, didn't just leak the Knight Lawson tapes. She watermarked them with the Knight Industries logo and dropped them as an exclusive to the most ruthless financial journalist in the city. The effect was instantaneous. The world didn't just hear the plot. They heard the intimacy of the betrayal. They heard Brenda's saccharine, false friendship. "Oliver, you look tired." They heard her manufactured urgency. "Trust me." They heard the calculated, venomous lies. The public was horrified not just by the crime, but by the sin. It was a story of a modern-day Judas, and the media devoured it. The second salvo was the money. The Lawson Holloway Fund for Corporate Ethics was a masterstroke of psychological warfare. By publicly attaching their names to the $100 million they had tried to steal, Oliver turned their crime into his charity. Every time a news anchor mentioned the new fund, it was a fresh twist of the knife. Brenda Lawson and Victor Holloway were finished. They were detained at the airfield, not arrested. They were delayed by federal agents who were acting on a tip and subjected them to a grueling 12-hour audit of their jets, their luggage, and their passports. They were forced to sit on a cold bench in a private terminal, stripped of their phones, while the story of their downfall played out on a television screen just above their heads. When they were finally cleared to leave, their reputations were ash. Holloway's stock was in freefall. His board called an emergency meeting to oust him. Brenda, disavowed by Knight, scorned by Holloway, who blamed her for the failure, and blacklisted by every major corporation, vanished. The Gilded Ledge was the last work dinner she would ever have. 2 weeks later, Mia sat in a booth at a small, nondescript coffee shop in a neighborhood Oliver Knight's driver had to use a GPS to find. It was loud, smelled of burnt coffee and sugar, and was as far from the Gilded Ledge as one could get. It was her choice. Her life since that night had been a surreal whirlwind. She was, for a few days, the most famous waitress in the world. Paparazzi had staked out her apartment. Talk shows offered 5-figure appearance fees. Her email inbox was a smoking crater of book deal offers and bizarre messages from strangers. She had said no to all of it. She quit her job. Jeffrey had, in a pathetic and complete reversal, begged her to stay and even offered her the manager position. She'd gone dark, staying on a friend's couch, letting the media storm rage until it found a new, shinier object. Oliver Knight arrived without his bodyguards. He wore jeans, a simple grey t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked younger and, for the first time, relaxed. He slid into the vinyl-cracked booth opposite her and ordered a black coffee from a waitress who didn't give him a second glance. "You're a hard person to get a meeting with, Mia," he he said, a small smile playing on his lips. I've been avoiding the spotlight, Mia said, nursing a lukewarm tea. It's not my world. It is now, if you want it to be, he said. He placed a simple, white envelope on the table between them. That at least is yours. Mia's hands trembled slightly. She didn't open it, but she knew. She could feel the sharp, rectangular edge of the check inside. What is it? A finder's fee, Oliver said, his voice quiet and sincere. For finding the snake in my garden, for saving me from myself, from my own blindness. It's $10 million. Mia stared at the envelope. $10 million. It was an abstract number, a fantasy. It was a new life. It was an end to the crushing weight of debt that had defined her entire adult life. It was a house for her parents. It was a future free of fear, of wondering if a car breakdown would mean she'd have to drop out of school. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, and it felt wrong. She looked at Oliver. He was a good man, a grateful man, but he was also a man who solved problems with money. This was a transaction, a very generous one, but a transaction nonetheless. This was the period at the end of the story. And then the billionaire paid the waitress, and she was never heard from again. Mia finally understood. Taking the money would be a different kind of trap. It would make her a footnote. She slid the envelope back across the Formica table. No. Oliver Knight, a man who had never been told no by anyone he was offering millions to, looked genuinely, utterly shocked. No. Mia, that's $10 million. You earned it. You saved me far more than that. Take it. Please. I can't, she said, her voice gaining strength. I've thought about this every day. If I take that check, then I'm just another person who took money from Oliver Knight. I'm part of the transaction. Mr. Peterson, your lawyer? He was right. In that boardroom, he said they would tear me apart. They'd paint me as a gold digger. Who cares what they'd say? Oliver argued. You'd be a very rich gold digger. I'd care, Mia said, meeting his gaze. I'd care. I didn't do it for money. I did it because, I don't know, because it was the right thing to do. Because my textbook said to spot the signs, and I did. If I take that check, I let them be right about me. And I let you off easy. Let me off easy? He was perplexed. I'm trying to give you a fortune. Don't give me a fortune, Mr. Knight. Give me an opportunity. Mia leaned forward, her eyes bright with an intensity that had been forged in that restaurant. Pay off my student loans. That's the deal. My $70,000 in debt, wiped clean. That's my price. That's it? He said, dumbfounded. 70,000? That's a rounding error. That's the what? Mia said. But then there's the why. I want a job. Oliver laughed, relieved. I told you. I bought the Gilded Ledge. It's yours. You can be CEO. Fire Jeffrey. Promote yourself. I don't want to be a waitress, Mia said, her voice dropping. I don't want to be a restaurant CEO. I want to be in that boardroom. For real this time. Not in the corner, in a borrowed sweatshirt. She took a deep breath. You're smart, Mr. Knight. The smartest man in the world, maybe. But you're blind. You were betrayed by your best friend, and you never saw it coming. You're surrounded by people who know numbers, and code, and law. But you have no one on your team who understands people. No one who can read a micro-expression, who understands the psychology of a lie. You have a multi-billion-dollar blind spot. I have you, he said. No, Mia countered. You have a girl who got lucky. I want to get good. I want you to pay my tuition, all of it. Undergrad, master's, and a PhD. Forensic psychology and criminology. I want to study the profile of deceit as a professional, not a hobby. And when I'm done, when I'm the best, I want a job in your risk assessment division. I don't want a $10 million check. I want a 401k, a benefits package, and a parking space. Oliver Knight stared at her for a full minute, the noise of the coffee shop fading away. He had met his share of ruthless negotiators. He was one. And he had just been comprehensively, brilliantly bested by a 21-year-old in a coffee shop. He picked up the white envelope. He didn't open it. He simply tore it in half, then in half again, and dropped the pieces into his empty coffee cup. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face. "You'll get your parking space," he said. "But you're not waiting for a PhD. You're smart enough now. You'll finish your degree on my dime. But you'll start Monday. As an intern, in risk assessment. $70,000 a year, plus tuition. Deal?" "Deal," Mia said, shaking the hand of the man whose empire she had saved and whose life she had just permanently entered. 1 year later, the boardroom on the 70th floor was quiet. Oliver sat at the head of the table. At the far end, in a sharp, tailored suit, sat Mia. She was no longer an intern. She was an executive associate, human risk division, a department she had invented and now ran. A new CFO, a man named Philip, with a flawless resume and a $5,000 suit, was clicking through a presentation. "And as you can see," Philip said, his voice booming with confidence, "our projections from the new Warsaw office are stellar. Profit margins are up 12%, a model of efficiency." "Go back a slide," a voice said. Philip paused, annoyed. He turned. "Ms. Mia? Do you have a question?" He was openly dismissive. She was the waitress, the boss's pet project. "Slide 24, Mia said, standing. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. "The projections. They're too perfect. They're mathematically identical to last quarter's reports, just with a flat 12% multiplier applied." Philip scoffed. "It's standard modeling, a projection of growth. It's optimistic." "It's not optimistic," Mia said, walking slowly towards the screen. "It's lazy. It's also a lie. I spoke to the Warsaw junior controller last night. He's terrified. His boss, the one you hired, is cooking the books to hit his first quarter bonus. It's small-time fraud, maybe $1 million, tops. But the man he's in business with, the shell corporation he's funneling the money to, it's registered to a holding company in the Caymans." She hit a button on her remote. A name appeared on the screen. Graves Holdings, LLC. The room went cold. It was the same name as the man at the bar. "It's a test," Mia said, looking directly at Oliver. "Holloway is out of the game, but his network isn't. They're testing us, seeing if we've plugged the holes, seeing if the dragon is still asleep, seeing if we're still watching." Philip, the new CFO, was white as a sheet. I had no idea. It's a simple oversight. I can fix this." Oliver Knight leaned back in his chair. He looked at Philip, then at Mia. A look of cold, absolute confidence was on his face. "Thank you, Mia," he said. "Mr. Peterson, please have Mr. Philip escorted from the building. Call the SEC and give them our full cooperation, and get our new Human Risk Division whatever resources they need to tear that Warsaw office apart." He looked at the new pale-faced CFO. "Philip, you're fired." As the man was quietly led away, Mia took her seat. She opened her notebook. She was no longer the ghost in the room. She was the gatekeeper. The trap had been set a long time ago, but this time she was the one watching. And that's the story of how a single observation, a split-second decision, changed everything. Mia wasn't a superhero. She was just someone who was paying attention. She proves that the most powerful person in the room isn't always the one with the most money, but the one who sees the truth. The world is full of traps and deceptions, but it's also full of everyday heroes waiting for their moment. What did you think of Mia's courage? And what do you think Oliver should have done to Brenda and Holloway? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of high-stakes drama and quick thinking, please make sure to hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that we're doing something right. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. We post new stories every week, and you don't want to miss a single one. Thanks for listening.